So Scorpio, your August 2025 forecast is going to see Saturn and Neptune very influential. But just to say, Saturn will be right at the end of this month preparing to inverse back into the sign of Pisces, which for you has mixed blessings. Saturn in the 5th solar house is not really a bunch of laughs, but all the hard work you've been putting in over the last couple of years in terms of your creative talents, you may need to go through one final period of pushing forwards to get them over the line, but you will get the results in mid-February next year. But what this month requires you to do with Saturn's help is grapple with the details. And sometimes the details can be a little bit frustrating. And because Neptune's in the mix as well, Neptune can distort, but for you, they're in your 6th house in a conjunction. So vitality could be affected by that. Also, your traditional ruler of Mars is going to move into a very tender part of your chart on the 6th and will initially come into a challenging opposition with Saturn and Neptune. So around your energy, that could take a little bit of a dip at that juncture. But also, as July came to a close, the relator Venus moved into a part of your chart to do with travel, anything to do with culture, being more expressive, but clashes as we come into this month with the miserly duo of Saturn and Neptune. So around a romantic relationship, if you aren't feeling particularly happy, or you feel someone is not really contributing enough, perhaps on the domestic level, it could be a flatmate, it could be a family member, that could be a little bit of a niggle, particularly as the sun, right at the heart of our existences, is actually pushing you at the start of this month to actually raise your profile, work very hard in achieving greater recognition. And Mercury, the communicator, is alongside. Now, they did crest together exactly as July came to a close, but Mercury is retrograde through to the 11th, so you could come into this month seeing your work situation as an opportunity, but not necessarily producing as you expect, and that Saturn and Neptune conjunction making you more aware of snags, limitations, or perhaps even where you don't feel you're quite as good as you could be. So do watch the self-criticism this month. I don't feel it will be particularly helpful to you. And around that work situation, or around any ambition you have, yes, it's true, at the start of this month, there may be something you need to alter. Mercury is about thinking, it's about communication, it's about messages, it's the intermediary, but it's also about analysis. But in the 10th house, it can suggest things, particularly in a retrograde, like retraining. It may be that you're going to have to flex. Not easy with you being a fixed sign and the Sun and Mercury in a fixed sign energy too. But that flexing could seize open an opportunity that some kind of delay or slowness seems to prevent you from going for what you had previously thought was what you wanted. So if you do get the chance to, for example, pitch for a job that's in a slightly different field or sector, but using your life experiences in a fresh way, do be very open to it, Scorpio. Because once we get to the 6th and Mars, your traditional ruler, goes into your 12th house, that could be a potentially tricky period for you that begins through the next 6 weeks, because Mars goes immediately opposite, as I mentioned before, Saturn and Neptune. Your physical vitality, particularly if you have got a lot on in terms of demands professionally, could be quite low at this time. The full moon on the 9th could make you much more aware of where you might want to cocoon yourself away. If your professional situation is very heavy, maybe your work-life balance is just out of kilter. But I return to the early point about Saturn and Neptune being in the 6th house. The 6th house can be to do with things like chores, routines, and if someone isn't pulling their weight or perhaps you could be a bit more organized. That could liberate you to get that better balance. So if you do need to be a bit firmer with some people around you, do take the opportunity to be so. But you know, within a couple of days, Mars inches forwards and connects to your modern ruler of Pluto. And in turn, that connects back to Uranus. Uranus has moved into a part of your chart which does have an echo of the sign of Scorpio. The 8th house can be transitions. It can be where we become much more conscious of our devotions, of our deep commitments, but it can also be about long-term finances. And in a way, because Uranus asks us to look at things in a fresh, sometimes innovative way, you could find that if you're thinking about a property matter, but think about it deeply and perhaps do some very extensive research, an opportunity can get prized open that when Mercury goes direct on the 11th, it will be in post-retrograde shadow, it's true, to the 25th, but I feel you'll feel much more comfortable if you do need to do something in a different way. So there could be a little bit of a roadblock at the start of this month. If there's too much at home that you have to deal with, you're having to support others, you've got obligations, those could be inhibiting about your desire to break out and do something more varied, particularly culturally or to do with travel with Venus. And with the opposition between Saturn and Neptune and Mars on the 6th, maybe if you are feeling lower in vitality, that's also shown up. But the month also gives you the astrological tools to make some amendments and change things. And then if you stick with it from the 9th to the 15th, if you are traveling anywhere, with Venus coming into an exact gorgeous conjunction with Jupiter, you could have an absolutely wonderful time. Whether it's to do with business, work, a job application, whether your job is to do with travel, whether it is someone you connect to who comes from a different background, that connection or opportunity could be very positive indeed. And then the Sun replaces Mars, your ruler, in the bubbly 11th house. The 11th house is our connections to others. It can be friendships, can be our network, can be our long-term plan, and there is a new moon on the 23rd where you can set your intentions using those connections in a really positive way. Just be conscious, however, that for the first time in nearly 80 years, Uranus, the planet of electricity, sudden changes, does clash with that new moon position. If there is a friend around you who tends to be a little clingy, perhaps resist some of the things you're wanting to do fresh, maybe you feel is also a bit controlling, you might find yourself wanting to have some space. It might not be terminal, but just know with Venus moving to the top of your chart on the 25th, if that professional opportunity that didn't quite move at the speed of light at the start of the month, if it's still open to you, your skills as a negotiator or working with people, which can often be very, very shrewd, are certainly going to come to the fore. People will be conscious of your ability to network, the 11th house energy of the sun and the new moon, but also your neat personality power, particularly if you're a creative, can be very constructive. You could, in a relationship context, also, if you've met someone you really like and you want to take it to the next step of commitment, you could find yourself meeting their folks as Venus moves to the top of your chart. Or if you've been with someone for a longer period of time, it could be a moment, if things are working generally well with you, when you're considering perhaps a property matter between you. But as August comes to a complete close, Venus does go into an opposition with your modern ruler Pluto. Just be aware that if you do encounter someone who's very keen for you to work with them and is very enthusiastic and very personable themselves, and perhaps they have a talent for understanding your emotional motives, that person could prise open and present an opportunity which seems very hard to resist. And it could be a very, very good opportunity. But also just be aware when Venus and Pluto are in opposition that something that seems too good to be true may be too good to be true, because someone could have a motive, but a motive that can be hidden. Pluto. Now, you're someone with a great strategic understanding, but I think generally this month you are being asked to be very open and upfront about what you need. It could be that other people will be upfront and open with what they want from you, but you will need to manage your energy carefully so you don't dissipate what's really important by getting too bogged down in the details or in the chores. And then as the month goes on, you will have an opportunity to be much more playful, joyful and social too. With year 2025 absolutely racing by, you can order your year 2026 Natal forecast now, and I'll give you the rest of this year free, but also 30% off and your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, helping to give us searing insights into the life patterns that have played out so far, but a much more intimate understanding of how to work with those energies future forwards. Please see the link below for more.